Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
This weekend, a group of Palestinians continued the trend of launching explosive and flaming balloons and kites over the border into Israeli territory. In response, Israeli aircraft opened fire on the group. For now, it's unclear whether these were intended as warning shots or whether the aim was to kill. 3 Gazans have been reported injured at this time, though. Hamas leaders initially rallied for 5,000 flaming kites to be sent over the border on Friday and Saturday, but the final celebrations of the Eid al-Fitr holiday, coupled with the first days of the World Cup, likely contributed to the overall low turnout. Still, the IDF has been grappling with how to effectively deter these flaming kite attacks, which have destroyed thousands of acres of Israeli farmland already. Early this morning, the army confirmed that they'd targeted one of the orchestrators of these attacks. As the army weighs whether or not to greenlight deadly force against lethal kite flyers, the children of Israel have decided to fight hate with love. They spent the weekend flying kites and balloons over the border into Gaza, featuring messages of hope instead of bombs, candy. The Israeli government is advancing a new bill that would make it illegal to either film or publish footage of IDF soldiers carrying out their duties. The proposal, which is expected to gain the full support of ministers today, would punish offenders with jail time for recording or promoting materials that harm, quote, the soldier's spirit. The exact terms of this definition would likely be left for the courts to decide. This bill has elicited vocal responses on both sides of the spectrum, though. Israeli and military leaders have often pushed for a bill like this, accusing NGOs and human rights organizations of bias against the army. Others, however, say that the bill is a dangerous breach of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. They point to several famous cases in the past where IDF misconduct was only discovered because activists were able to film and publish it. The Israeli military conduct in the occupied territories in the West Bank are an especially delicate issue. The bill, if passed, would punish offenders with a maximum of 10 years in jail for any footage that harms, quote, state security, and 5 years for anything that merely puts the army in a negative light. Following the expected approval of Israeli ministers today, the bill will be sent to the floor of the Knesset for a full reading and first vote. Mere days after Israeli security forces were ordered to demolish a Jewish outpost in the West Bank, police are preparing to evacuate a second such outpost. This one consists of 13 Jewish homes in the hilltops just south of the Palestinian city of Nablus. Israel's High Court ruled several months ago that the structures had been built illegally on Palestinian-owned land. These 13 homes in the West Tapuach outpost, however, represent only half of the entire community. In a famous and fiercely debated ruling, the High Court decided that the other 18 homes would be retroactively legalized, even though they too were built on Palestinian land. The basis of the ruling, done under the state's regulation bill, allows such retroactive legalization if the settlement was built unknowingly on Palestinian-owned land. In the case of these 13 structures, however, the courts ruled that because settlers apparently knowingly built them illegally, they would therefore be slated for demolition. Israeli police have already been dispatched to the West Tapuach settlement, where they've clashed with Jewish settlers protesting the decision. If last week's images of the Netiva Avot settlement's demolition are of any kind of signal, this is likely what we'll be seeing in the coming days as well. Prime Minister's wife SARA Netanyahu's legal team and state officials have failed to come to a plea agreement regarding charges of fraud and diverting public funds. Therefore, Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit and State Prosecutor Shai Nitzan are reportedly set to indict Netanyahu in the coming days. Mandelblit first informed the public of his intent to indict Sarah Netanyahu in September. She allegedly diverted over $100,000 of public money for personal expenditures, including having famous chefs come to prepare meals at the Prime Minister's residence, despite having a full-time chef on staff. Netanyahu's lawyers reportedly attempted to broker a deal in which Netanyahu would pay back some of the money she spent and apologize in exchange for the investigation being dropped. But the Attorney General supposedly rejected this proposal. Coincidentally, the state prosecutor's office also reportedly suggested such a plan, but the Prime Minister's wife allegedly replied that she'd rather go to jail than pay back the state. This response was quickly followed with her attorneys offering just $14,000 as reimbursement, which the state rejected just as quickly. Well, now, with reports of indictments underway against Sarah and the police recommending more indictments against her husband, the Prime Minister, the whole country is at the edge of its seat. In a countrywide first, the Parliament of Navarre, one of the states of northern Spain, has just voted overwhelmingly to align itself with and endorse the BDS movement against Israel. The center-right People's Party was the only one to vote against the motion last month. According to the language of the referendum, Navarre will call on the central government of Spain to, quote, support any initiative promoted by the international BDS campaign and suspend ties with Israel until Israel ceases its policy of criminal repression of the Palestinian population, end quote. Spanish pro-Israel advocacy group ACOM is bashing the resolution as one-sided, saying it neither makes any mention of Israel's right to self-determination nor Hamas's brutality and acts of terrorism. Navarre isn't alone either, though. Several other countries in the European Union have also supported the BDS campaign, as have multiple other Spanish municipalities, and the United Nations just last week in a vote of 120 to 8. United States Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley criticized that vote as well as purely political, one-sided, and ignorant of Hamas's violence and instigations. Then, Israeli United Nations Ambassador Danny Danon said it even more bluntly, that a vote for the referendum was a vote for Hamas.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.